Building something great requires more than passion. It demands ruthless reinvention. For anyone who has ever felt the sting of a failed project, you know that failure tastes like 3-day-old pizza and regret. You're not just mourning a company, you are grieving the smug "I told you so" glances from relatives and the employee paychecks that will never clear. The truth is that real innovation isn't about being right. It's about surviving wrong turns and rewriting the map as you go. The Lean Startup is a book about a new way of looking at work. It's based on the idea that entrepreneurship isn't some mystical art, it's a science of sweat equity. At its heart, the book defines a startup as a human institution designed to create a new product or service under extreme uncertainty. This means it doesn't matter if you're in a Silicon Valley garage, a nonprofit, or a Fortune 500 boardroom. If you're building the unknown, you're in the arena. We often cling to traditional business playbooks, but in today's world, those tools can dig the first grave. We're taught to obsess over polished strategies and bulletproof market analysis, but startups aren't playing chess. They're navigating a hurricane blindfolded. In this kind of environment, planning is like bringing a snorkel to a meteor shower, useless when your environment's rewriting the rules every quarter. Instead of old-school management, we need validated learning, which is the no BS compass for navigating uncertainty. It's about finding cold, hard proof of what's actually moving the needle versus what's just ego. We have to ask ourselves, are we building a real business or a delusional hobby? Take the story of IMVU. In the early days, the team spent 6 months of relentless effort and late nights in a cramped Silicon Valley office to build a 3D virtual world add-on for instant messaging. They were convinced they had a revolutionary platform, but when they finally hit go, there were no angry mobs or viral takedowns, just eerie quiet. Customers didn't even care enough to hate it. The team realized that the real value at IMVU wasn't the code we cranked out, it was the brutal truths we unearthed about what customers truly hated. Every minute spent on features they'd never notice was waste. They had overengineered a dud. They discovered through test sessions with a 16-year-old from Phoenix that users didn't want to invite their real-life friends to an unproven app because, if this flops, I'm getting roasted till graduation. This leads to the heartbeat of the Lean Startup method, which is the build, measure, learn loop. The goal is to race through this loop without cutting corners. We start with a minimum viable product, or MVP. This is not some polished gadget, but the simplest prototype that kicks off the real game. An MVP can be as simple as the demo video used by Dropbox. Instead of banking on their engineering chops alone, they skipped building the full product up front and showed the magic of file syncing in a quirky video. The beta waitlist skyrocketed from 5,000 to 75,000 overnight. That video wasn't just marketing, it was the MVP because real people voted with their email signups. Then there's the concierge MVP, like the story of food on the table. They started with a single customer and no fancy software. The CEO and VP of product literally showed up at her doorstep every week to hand-deliver grocery lists and recipes. By traditional metrics, this was a disaster with zero scalability. But every interaction taught them something new. They scaled neighborhood by neighborhood, rooted in what actually sold, not hypotheticals. Sometimes you have to use smoke and mirrors, like the founders of Aardvark did. They wanted to build a virtual assistant that felt human, but for the first 9 months, there was no AI, just real people manually routing queries behind the scenes. They faked it till they could code it, just to answer the billion-dollar question, if we nail the tech, will anyone care? As you move through this loop, you need innovation accounting to stay honest. This is the entrepreneur's lie detector. We have to ditch vanity metrics like total registered users or raw download numbers, because those are about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Instead, we look at cohort analysis, which is like a startup's X-ray vision. At IMVU, the team realized their improvements were like repainting a car with no engine, because even though they were adding features, the payment rate was stuck at 1% for every new group of users. That graph wasn't just data, it was a wake-up call to rethink everything. They had to stop polishing trophies and start building engines. Eventually, every team hits a make-or-break moment where they must decide to pivot or persevere. A pivot is not failure, it's a strategic reboot. It's about keeping one foot firmly rooted in what we've learned while shifting the other toward a new direction. Look at the journey of Vodacin, a platform for civic engagement. The founder, David Benetti, spent months tweaking sign-up flows and A/B testing button colors, only to find that retention barely reached 8%. He was in the land of the living dead, where startups survive without thriving. He realized that tweaking features wasn't enough. The core concept lacked staying power. He pivoted from a social network to a tool that converted digital messages into physical mail for activists. When that still didn't pay the bills, he pivoted again, ditching cash-strapped activists for deep-pocketed corporate clients. Each pivot was faster and sharper, taking the company from a total faceplant to a rising star. To accelerate this whole process, we have to look at batch sizes. There's a counterintuitive truth in the single-piece flow. Think about stuffing 100 envelopes. It feels more efficient to fold all letters first, but completing each envelope start to finish before moving to the next is actually faster. This is because small batches outpace bulk processing by allowing us to spot flaws instantly and avoid disaster. Large batches feel logical, but you're actually creating chaos. In a startup, this means continuous deployment, pushing changes to live users a dozen times a day rather than waiting for one massive launch. Speed and safety aren't opposites, they're the twin engines of modern innovation. When things do go wrong, the book teaches us to use the 5 whys. This is about peeling back layers of symptoms to expose hidden flaws. If a machine stops, you don't just swap fuses like a hamster on a wheel. You ask why until you find the root cause, which usually points at a human oversight or a management blind spot. The goal is to tie growth to adaptability, not just hustle. This isn't just for small teams. Look at Intuit, a Fortune 500 company acting like hungry disruptors. They gamified failure, awarding crash and learn trophies for the most educational flops. They built sandboxes where data trumps seniority, proving that innovation isn't about size, it's about building ecosystems where ordinary teams do extraordinary things. In the end, the real waste isn't inefficiency. It's clinging to methods that prioritize spreadsheets over sparks of ingenuity. We're living in a time where we've perfected the art of efficiently doing what doesn't matter. The existential question isn't can we build it, but should we? Innovation isn't magic. It's a discipline worth mastering. It's about launching fast, failing cheap, and laughing all the way to the bank. We have to quit romanticizing chaos and start building smarter, because the next big thing won't wait for permission. As you move forward, remember, success isn't about lightning strike moments or Silicon Valley fairy dust. It's about the relentless, unsexy work of testing, tweaking, and listening. That is how you build empires.